Each business has a founder, and each founder has a story. How did they come up with an idea? What challenges did they have to overcome? Why are they doing it? What are they hoping to achieve? Let's go behind the scenes and unveil interesting stories.
Hi, and welcome back to Podim DX21 lobby. I have another interesting guest with me here today on this great white sofa, super relaxing atmosphere. Michael Schuster from Speed Invest. Michael, hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. Good to be here in person in Maribor. It's been a long time that I've traveled to a conference.
Great that you stopped by. I was so surprised when you messaged me that, oh, okay, I'll be in Maribor. Really great. How do you like the city so far?
It's great. I've been here before, and I have to say that that's part of the reason why I came here also in person. Is just Slovenia is awesome, so I like it a lot here.
Great. So basically, from your portfolio perspective, it's also awesome from from investment perspective, right? Not only from nice cities and people.
Absolutely. I mean, we're firm believers in the whole region, and as you know, we've invested very early on in Slovenia. I'm still on the board of Flavia, a company that is very near and dear to my heart, and that I think has achieved great things. So definitely also coming for the business reasons. Even though I have to say, in these times, it's kind of hard. Everything's different. So I think we're trying to find our way back into the way we used to do business only a year ago, right?
Do you already have like a plan on returning to like a new normal, or are you still like carefully making the next steps, or you as a Speed Invest do you have already like a plan set for returning in the offices, etc.?
Yeah, we had many plans, and then what we learned in the past year is that if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. So I personally stopped doing that. I was supposed to get married last year. That didn't happen. So we're also very cautious on this side. We're actually planning a company retreat for June. In person in Vienna. Let's see if that happens. I think that's a big if. And then slowly opening up the offices as Austria has been opening up and many other countries last week. We also slowly opened the offices again. So let's see how that will go.
Your offices should also grow since Speed Invest as such as a as a family grew enormously in last couple of years. So can you just briefly explain us how was this journey? Because when you see your company photo, there are like a lot of people there.
Yes, we keep on looking for bigger places to do these company photos because there's so many people on there. No, I mean we've had a great journey. I mean we're only 10 years old this year. Actually, tomorrow is
really?
Our 10th anniversary as a company, and looking at what we've achieved so far, I'm really grateful. So we're now managing more than 500 million. We've invested in over 180 startups. We're an 80 people team across Europe, from Vienna to London, Berlin, Munich, Paris. So we've also geographically spread. And then, of course, also the portfolio has done really, really well, especially in the last year. I guess that's true for everyone. That's also a bit due to the situation in the markets, but generally we've just come a long way from the 10 million fund that we originally raised 10 years ago to where we are now. And I hope it's a great basis for the next 10 years. Yeah.
I just saw another article on LinkedIn. It was about European unicorns, and 7 out of 12 mentioned in the article basically were from your portfolio. So
yes, we
congrats on that.
Thank you. Yeah, that it's in a way it's what you work towards too as a fund. Of course, unicorns are sort of the it's not the currency, but it's of course the most visible thing in this industry, and I think it's also what a lot of founders work towards. And then you have very little influence, and I do have to say I think a lot of the companies in the past 12 months have really because their business model really lent themselves well to, being more remote, being more digital, using tools that you would only use in a situation where really the circumstances change so much. So these companies really benefited from it. But I think it's also a great testament to the region that you can now all over the region, from UiPath to many other companies, also luckily from our portfolio, you can see that there's really a generation of entrepreneurs that are totally up to par with their US counterparts. I remember so many conferences, maybe also on Podim, where we discussed, what does it take for Europe to become better in this game? Why are US entrepreneurs so much better? And I think the past years have clearly shown that it takes a while. All of these unicorns took 4, 5, 6 years in the making, so no overnight successes. But if you stick to it and if you're on it, you can actually achieve the same thing in Europe. And I think that will change a lot in the whole ecosystem, also for founders to come.
Yeah, and I think the consistency is one of the most important success factors, also from an ecosystem perspective, to really thrive and to keep doing you said you're 10 years strongly present in the ecosystem, investing in great stories, great founders. You as a team is super active, super responsible. So you were part of Podim for many years. So we really appreciate that kind of cooperation and also basically it reflects in the results at the end of the day, right?
I think so. It's also, if you're to be very honest and also self-reflective here, of course, it's a numbers game, right? If we would have done, very few investments like many funds do, then this probably would have looked different. But I think that's sort of the insight that I'm gaining out of this, is that you just need a different strategy based on where you are investing and how you are investing. So the fact that we invested in a lot of companies, we basically did a lot of bets, but we didn't do the usual spray and pray where you spray your tickets and then pray that something good happens. We really work very intensively with the founders, and we're there for every step of the journey. We invested in Flavia almost 10 years ago, so I think 9 years ago, and still we're very active in the board. So I think that's also part of how we see that region, that yes, it can produce these results, but you really need to be, really need to place a lot of bets, and you really need to be still very active with the companies. So it's not just waiting on the sidelines for them to happen.
And this is also, I presume, a reason for setting up this Speed Invest Academy kind of program. So to really have like hands-on approach, working with founders. And why do you think this is like different from let's say US? So why do these European founders, or at least founders from that region, need more hands-on approach, or is this basically the same as in US? If you have any comparison.
It's an interesting question, and I think I could talk an hour about that alone. And I don't know if we have that time, but the short version is, so I think if you look behind the scenes, and I think that's a good forum to do so, most of the US funds have extensive platform operations. So that's also what we call it, Platform Plus. So a team that really works for portfolio success. And you'll find funds that are very vocal about it. They'll talk about it. They say, okay, this is what we provide. Everyone knows that Andreessen Horowitz has, hundreds of people really only working with portfolio companies. And you find other funds who are not that vocal about it, and they'll not talk about it, but still have it available. And of course, it's you're not sure if this will be successful, but all of the funds have it in some way or form. So I think it's an industry standard by now. And why is it more important in Europe? Well, I think first of all, it really just helps making less mistakes early on, setting yourself up for success early on. Mm-hmm. That's the main criteria. And then also there's really a lack of people that have done it before. So we've seen this with a couple of companies, especially the ones out of Vienna. If they try to get talent that has scaled a company before, let's say a very experienced CMO or a really great CFO that has been going through this journey before, if they try to get them to Vienna, it's a real hassle because they need to relocate the whole family. You need a job for the husband or the wife, depending on who you're hiring, and you need to make sure that everyone feels well here. And I guess it's the same probably with Slovenia or any other country in that region. So it's really difficult to get that talent into the company at the right time. And that's a big difference of ecosystems like Berlin or London, where you have these scale-ups, you have sort of a developed ecosystem where people just walk out one door and into the other, and the learnings that they had in one of the companies are immediately applicable to the other companies. So I think there's still some time that needs to pass for us, to build up that ecosystem, and that's why probably in Europe it's a bit of a different situation still. But as we've shown, I think great companies can be founded anywhere.
And is this transformation in building this strong back office can be also seen in other, let's say, funds in Europe? Is this becoming like a main thing also in other cases, or it's more like a solo case for your fund?
I think we were definitely the earliest in that ecosystem, or among the earliest, and a long time, even internally, we were questioning whether it's the right thing to do. I was just talking to a VC from the US the other day, and he said they had just a great exit, great multiple, company's doing extremely well, and the partner said it's the company that they worked least with, which is kind of contradictory to the whole way we look at this industry, that investors pride themselves to work a lot with the companies. Of course that also happens, and then you question yourself. You don't see immediate results. It takes a long time, but in the end I think so more and more funds are starting to do this in Europe. I think everyone has already identified talent as the big shortage that we have. Finding the right people for this journey, finding the talent is really tough. So that's a component that everyone tries to add. And once you're a talent, it's really only sort of the next step to growth or other services is very logical.
And it's also easier. And I think, how is your perspective on the talent pool? I mean, you mentioned several times, so talent, so experienced people who have done it before, who've got their hands dirty. Basically, it's a young ecosystem, so there not being so many exits, and people who done this multiple times. So, how do you see this? Is this like this biggest constraint holding back the velocity of developing the ecosystem, or is because I think money is not the problem anymore.
That's true. Yeah, money is not the problem anymore, the amount of money. So we did an analysis just recently in the first quarter of this year. 12 billion of venture money went into European startups. It's by far the highest number that ever went into a single quarter. Usually Q1 is always stronger because a lot of the Q4 rounds get announced later, but it was the biggest number. A lot of them went into growth rounds. A lot of the money went into growth rounds, so 100 million plus. And I think, of course, there the shortage is clear. If you can get an experienced operator that has done it before, that's immediate benefit. The playbooks are there. There's a lot of other companies that have shown how it gets. I think we're not able to take a shortcut there, right? We just have to accept that this is a shortage. What I've seen with a lot of companies in Europe is that they're incredibly resourceful in trying to overcome that shortage. So I've seen a lot of founders really learn fast, really try hard and never give up. That's why I also think it still takes a bit longer in Europe to build up a company of that scale, to get to these valuations and rounds, which are essentially just a proxy of where the business is at. But it takes longer because they need to learn. They need to do a couple more rounds of learning. Whereas in the US, we see these rocket ships basically raising one round after the other, and 24 months or 12 months even after they were founded, they're already $1 billion company. That's still very rare in Europe, but the resourcefulness is our big asset.
What about the remote work which came with the pandemic? Is this like an opportunity for this like extending the talent pool and hunting the talents from all over the Europe, or I mean all over the world, or is this more like a threat because our European talent is more kind of open to the companies outside?
That's a very good question and a very, very good insight. I don't have a final answer to that yet. I think it remains to be seen, especially once we go back to some kind of in-person culture again. Of course, right now, it's very beneficial in terms of funding. I mean, the amount of funding we've seen in Europe in the last 12 months and what has happened is really unique. It's probably a bit negative on the talent side, because a lot of the people here realize, I might as well, if I'm sitting in front of Zoom the whole day, I might as well sit in front of Zoom for some US company that will bring me, I don't know, billions of money or something. So that's probably still a bit tough. But I'm very positive, or I do think that once we go back to opening up offices and being together more, in essence, humans are social beings and we want to spend time with each other. Yeah. This will come back, and the funding will definitely stay. So that's probably the last sentence. I've never seen it be so easy for European companies to raise money, especially from US VCs. For a long time that has been difficult and has been a challenge, but now it's really an open market.
So these are two things you mentioned that I would like to build upon. So first one is this massive amount of money being poured into the ecosystem. You think this is only a positive thing, or you also consider it also as a little bit negative, since it's so easier to get the money? Are you seeing maybe the standards are falling down, or the evaluations are going up? Is this imbalance already approaching like unhealthy level, or do you see only positive sides to this massive money flowing into the ecosystem?
I mean, the question is who you're asking.
Yeah.
Of course, as a VC that wants to invest into companies, the last year has probably been the closest we've ever been to an existential crisis. Because the first 3 months we were busy trying to figure out whether our portfolio is gonna die because of a pandemic, and the next 9 to 12 months we were figuring out how we're going to pay up on all these players moving into earlier rounds, putting more money on the table faster without a due diligence. So there's two sides. Net, I think it's positive for everyone, because it really just accelerates the learning cycles that we can take in this ecosystem. It elevates us to the next level. It clearly put Europe on the map, and clearly put most of the parts in Europe on the map. So I think we've never seen such a consistent inflow of money into all areas. Usually you had London, Berlin, France taking up most of the money. Now we've seen success stories all over Europe. So I think it has clearly proven that Europeans can build great companies, and the money spent here is well spent. Now, is every euro going to be well spent? Definitely not.
Definitely not. Yeah.
That's not going to be the case, but that doesn't matter. That's part of this this learning experience that we're all in together. That sometimes you'll spend on companies or business models or things that are not valuable in the long term, but in the end it will create something. Something will
will come out of it.
Will stick.
Yeah.
It will leave its trace. And I do think that most of the companies that we see doing these large funding rounds, they really have substantial business models, sustainable business models, so they can really thrive long term. So I do see this as a great thing overall.
So, and the second thing you mentioned is now a lot of US funds now equally considering investing in Europe as in US funded entities. So why do you think this happens? So what was that shift? Because of the amount of money so for co-investments, or is there a regulatory reason, or is just like the trust reason? So the ecosystem kind of matured enough in order to gain this trust level so everyone can invest?
Yeah, again, multiple reasons. I think one reason is really that founders have changed. I remember the first 5 years we would always discuss on panels and also privately that founders in Europe need to be willing to move to the US. Now you see a lot of founders do these moves preemptively. Recently in a conversation with Andre from Credo, he was actually saying he would love for everyone to move and continue the brain drain because these are great funding targets. These are companies that he wants to fund. And I do have to agree, there's something about it. Much more internationally minded, much more globally minded. And the second thing is, I mean, Zoom happened, right? So no one could travel anywhere. No conferences, no in-person meetings. So no one was on a flight. So everyone had a lot of time at hands. And the next person was just a Zoom call away. So what really happened, and we saw this ourselves, for the first months we were still like, should we do deals remotely? It feels weird. We've never seen the founding team, not even talk to the people in person. But after 2-3 deals, you get comfortable. We had what we called the walk in the park clause in the first 2 term sheets that we did post-pandemic. So one of our partners had to take a walk in the park with one of the founders of the team. We dropped that after 2. So, just the way deals are made completely changed. And of course, the speed changed. I think there's a panel going on parallel. It's just crazy. The amount of interactions that you're having, the amount of startups that you're able to connect with and talk to has just changed so much. And that has changed for US investors as well. And I do also think another reason is definitely that, for a lot of US funds, previously China was an interesting area. That changed due to geopolitical reasons. So that's probably the good thing about the Trump presidency, that Europe really benefited and that US investors understood that Europe is actually a viable market.
But, from the investor's perspective, do you see that there are more, the number of startups increased or the quality increased? So the overall investment potential increased in the region? Or it's only basically the same potential, just with a multiple amount of money being in the market at the moment?
I think both increased. I mean, of course, we're seeing, we're around for 10 years. So that means a lot of the people that we originally invested or didn't invest into, they're now at their second startup. There's a generation before, or maybe 2 generations before of sort of the pioneers. So some people are already at their third startup. Then you have the effect that we really didn't see before in Europe so much, is that people from certain companies start their own companies. So we're seeing more. I mean, there's probably 3 or 4 people from Revolut that went into VC. There's people from Skype that did companies, and so there are these centers of gravity where all of a sudden people come out that seen it before, and they're going into it. So there is this exponential growth that I think we now all understand how powerful that can be. That it's not linear, but once there's more and more people, it's like a virus spreading.
And it's gaining this momentum, right?
Exactly, and we're sort of at the brink of the momentum. So I think both happened. The quality definitely get better. I mean, the knowledge that we see with founders today is very different from what we've seen 5 years, 10 years ago. But of course, also it's the quantity. I mean, we're seeing last year we saw 10,000 startups, and I think we can easily double that number
this year,
in the next years, and still not see everything. So it's quite a impressive number, I think.
Impressive, yeah, definitely. So our time's slowly running up. Maybe last question regarding the ecosystem. So the region, so the founders, the number and the qualities increases, the money is there. Also, the events as Podim are also here. How do you see this, ecosystem and this map? What would be the next enablers or changes that needs to be made in order to even more accelerate the ecosystem growth and development, and to come even closer to maybe US and China?
I think one thing that I've seen, especially in CEE over the last years, is that you've talked about consistency, and Podim is a great example of consistency. Just the fact that you're doing this every year is really great, because it creates these focal points in regular instances where people can meet and connect. And to me, the same thing is with funds. So what I think great venture funds do, they're consistent. So there is a new fund every couple of years, and they consistently invest. And what I've seen in CEE is, unfortunately, that a lot of the funds that come up don't manage to raise the next fund. So someone new comes up, which is great, but then they have to do the learning curve all over again. They have to prove themselves all over again. So I think my message is mostly to people who invest into funds, probably, to trust the people that are investing the money longer than just for one fund, because that consistency, and I've seen it, if I could tell you for stories for hours how many mistakes we did in the first and even the second fund, and we're probably doing even now. But of course, you learn something, and that learning is then often lost. And also, the founders don't have stable, consistent ecosystem partners that they can talk to, and that will also understand how the ecosystem works, because the founder that does this now will do something else in 4 years, and it's great if the investor already knows what you did past then, and has, Steve Jobs call it, connecting the dots, if they have multiple dots to connect. So that consistency is what I think is key. And if the public, if governments, if public money can help provide that consistency, because it has a more long-term horizon, that will be a great thing, because everyone will benefit in the end. And if you look at it, all big venture ecosystems are publicly funded. Europe has made great effort with EIF, so that there is sort of we're walking, or we're slowly getting to this consistency.
And we are in the right direction, and I think that only this, sticking to this path and making little bit, pivots is the right strategy, right? Not changing something radically, but just pivoting and making small changes in the ecosystem, right?
Absolutely.
So just maybe to close slowly, what is your next? So the second half of this year. How does it look like for you as a part of management of Speed Invest, for Speed Invest as fund? So what can we expect? What do you expect, personally from business perspective?
Yeah, that's always a good question. If you would have asked me a year ago what I expect from the next year, I would have said something entirely different. So, but I don't know. I think what's really interesting for us is to see what, once we get into some more secure waters in terms of COVID, it's interesting to see how certain sectors will pick up. Of course, travel is the big question mark, and we have a lot of investments in travel, so that's interesting. And I mean, we're banking on this trend, so that the availability of that amount of money to continue. So I think there will be that much money available that will definitely impact how we invest and our strategy. And I think, our plan is to go out fundraising again next year. So just like founders, we also have to fundraise. Fortunately, it's longer periods. But yeah, we're going to go out, and I think our goal is to do exactly that, double down on what you said, the direction. That is totally right. We're doing the right things. We just have to tweak little things and stick to it. And yeah.
You still personally work with founders. So how does your week looks like? How much time you divide in working with founders? How much do other management topics? Do you miss working, with this, getting hands dirty with founders, or?
Yeah, I missed that a lot. That's why last year I made a change. I focused on a certain area to be able to do deals again there. A wonderful team that I'm working with, and so I'm spending more time with founders and actually pipeline, so deal flow, than ever, which is great. That's essentially, I think, why you get into VC, is to talk to entrepreneurs. There was this signation that everyone has a story. I'm really into these stories. So I'd say probably half of my week is focused on portfolio. Then one day on management, 1.5 days, depends on what week it is, whether we have our management meeting or not, and then another day on looking at new companies. Some of them only really short time, like this afternoon, the mentoring sessions, just 20 minutes, which is incredibly short. And sometimes we do really deep dives, spend hours with a company and try really to understand what they're trying to do. So that's, I'd say, the rough split. It has been very little in terms of conferences and events, so let's see how this holds up once we get back to a conference and event schedule.
Great. Michael, so much, so great that you're here. I'll leave you now to the beautiful sun here in Maribor and enjoy a few sun rays left in 2 days. We see each other again tomorrow in the final judging session. So hopefully Marcus did a good call in selecting the finalist.
Yes.
So again, thanks for stopping by. So great to have you here, and looking forward also to great cooperation in next years.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, and thanks for putting that up. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. So this was the short call with short chat with Michael Schuster from Speed Invest. Now I invite you all to join all the rest 3 studios, which there's a parallel program going on, and we see each other at the next lobby break.